All right, everyone. Good morning. It's a wonderful morning here in Monterey. I want to thank all of you on behalf of Cal State University, Monterey, for coming. This is kind of following on to the colloquium that we had a few months ago, and is in keeping with President Ochoa's goal, since he's been here, of really making this university a steward of place. You know, we have a responsibility to kind of work on all the issues that are of importance to all of the citizens of this region, and we really hope that you start to think of the university as part of the community and a place where we can all gather to discuss issues like this, which are so important. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that President Ochoa has a speaker series, and at the end of this month, I'm sure everyone is interested in the 1% and income inequality in our country. And so we're going to have Manuel Pastor, a renowned economist from USC, here on the 30th. And I hope a lot of you can come to hear what this gentleman has to say about some of the big issues facing this country. Now, in terms of today, we've got some great experts from all around the region who are really going to kind of help start the conversation and continue it in terms of what we want this area to look like as we move forward. With that, I'd like to introduce Michael Hulamard, Executive Director of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and we'll get this thing started.
Thank you very much, Andre, and thank you also for the work that you've done with Eduardo Ochoa to make this venue available for all of us to enjoy and exchange about trails and trails for the Monterey Bay region. Before we get started on the specifics about the trails, some of us are new to this experience of what we're doing here at Fort Ord, and many of us are just getting acquainted with the importance of trails and the role that they play in this economic recovery. And so just as a little bit of background, the Fort Ord Reuse Authority was created in 1994. The idea was that to bring a regional thinking to the idea of the recovery from the closure of Fort Ord that started in 1991 with the announcement by the Department of Defense. The former Fort Ord is about the size of the county of San Francisco, or about 45 square miles. It includes some of the most wonderful open spaces that we have in this region, and some of rare areas that protect endangered species that we actively engage in producing a habitat conservation plan and a habitat management plan. In fact, I'm hoping all of you will be active community participants in responding when that habitat conservation plan comes out later this year. Right, Jonathan Garcia? Say that loudly, Jonathan. Say yes, Michael. That habitat conservation plan will define a lot of the things that will be beneficial for preserving open spaces on the former Fort Ord in perpetuity. The work of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority was to be overseeing the planning, financing, and recovery programs for the region that includes Santa Cruz, San Benito, and Monterey counties, and that's all in state law. Our focus, however, is more precisely on this portion of the Monterey Bay that is called the Monterey Peninsula, that really ranges from Salinas all the way to Carmel. But the colleagues that are here from Santa Cruz, we think of you also, and our colleagues from San Benito, we think of you as well, because we know our responsibilities are broader than that. Fort Ord Reuse Authority has a board of directors at which everyone in this room has a representative. In fact, I want to acknowledge some of them who are here today that are board members. The first, I'd like to acknowledge probably the most important organization within FORA that has to do with this trail symposium, that being the Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee. For the last 18 months or so, our chair, Jerry Edelin, from the last 2 years, offered his leadership on that committee. And Jerry, if you could stand. Jerry provided the listening ear to understand what both sides were talking about, or 4 sides or 6 sides. We had a lot of opinions on this issue, and Jerry actively engaged in making sure that these kind of issues get vetted in the community. While I'm mentioning Jerry, I'd also like to acknowledge the other members of the Post Reassessment Advisory Committee. Jane Parker, Supervisor for the 4th District. I was eavesdropping on Jane's interview with KSBW a few minutes ago, where she talked about the importance of this day, the quality of the speakers, why it's crucial that we have a two-way engaged conversation about active transit. Next, I'd like to acknowledge Victoria Beach, Mayor Pro Tem from the City of Carmel. Mayor Pro Tem Beach has been very much an advocate for this program, as well as the design program that we are undertaking in a few weeks. I know all of you will be participating in that as well. Victoria participated last night, where we did an active, engaged way of working with the speakers to give them a little background about what was happening here at Fort Ord. And Victoria spent hours and hours and hours calling almost everybody in this room to make sure that they showed up. Andre Lewis from California State University, Monterey Bay, and you've already heard from him. I don't know if Tom Moore is here, but he's been, over the last year, also an active participant in the Post Reassessment Advisory Committee. And I also want to mention Marina, City Councilwoman Gayle Martin, who's hiding. Councilwoman Martin has not only been an activist with respect to trails, but has dedicated a significant amount of her personal time on specific trails programs through the city of Marina that link Marina to the National Monument and the coast, and is an advocate for this, as well as the design program that we're engaging in a few weeks. And thank you, Gail. I think we got everybody on the Post Reassessment Advisory Committee. Next, I'd like to acknowledge our chair at the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Frank OConnell. And I think we have a few other Fora board members in the room. That includes Peter Lee, Dave Pacheco from the City of Seaside, I see Graham Bice from the University of California. Did somebody say Alec was here? There's Alan Hoffa from the City of Monterey. I hope I caught all of the Fora board members, because we don't want to miss anyone. I thought I saw Todd from Transportation. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Debbie Hale from Transportation Agency for Monterey County. All right, thank you all for being here. I mentioned a few things about the Fort Ord Reuse Authority and the history, just to give us some context, but I also want to transition to talk about, in 1997, the approval of the base reuse plan. That base reuse plan included a number of ways of connecting the venues that we're going to talk about today. Understand that today's mission is not to talk about designing the trails or precisely where they're going to be, but to talk about the impact of those trails programs and that interconnectivity on the lives of the people in this region. Oftentimes we forget the importance of trails with respect to things like environmental justice or economic justice or access or the other issues that are important to the people that ultimately the Fort Ord Recovery Program was meant to serve. Those are the folks that may have lost their jobs or were impacted by the closure back in the 1990s. So today, many of the things you'll hear about have to do with inclusiveness and have to do with economics and have to do with the relationship of these trails and other kinds of transit, active transit programs, and the value that they bring to the tourism economy in Monterey Bay, what they bring to the benefits for the California State University, Monterey Bay, especially the students and faculty here in terms of access, the ongoing benefit that it'll bring to values for property owners and others in the cities of Seaside and Marina, Delray Oaks, Monterey, Sand City, and others. You may even hear some things about the importance of finding ways of making these trails link with other communities so that we have connectivity between the whole Monterey Bay. So there's a lot today that we can talk about. today, and I'm hoping all of you will have your ears open as you hear terms like economics and access and open space and connectivity and environmental justice, because we have great speakers today to talk about those kinds of things. First speaker today is going to be Josh Metz. He joined us at Fora as part of our planning team in the fall of 2013, and since that time, he spent quite a bit of extra time, late nights with our Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee, our Regional Urban Design Guidelines, the consultants that we hired to do the Regional Urban Design Guidelines, and the speakers that are going to hear from today. Josh is very much an activist when it comes to recreational activities, active transit, and the other kinds of items you'll hear today. He has a history of being involved in the planning activities for high-quality landscapes, for management of outcomes, for compact growth. He holds a master's degree in landscape architecture from University of California and a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Humboldt State University. I give you Josh Metz.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction, and indeed it's an honor to be here and to have had the opportunity to work with the Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee on bringing this symposium together. We certainly appreciate you all coming out. So my role here is to help set a context for why we're here and how the trail topic is dealt with in the reuse plan, and also to point out some of the excellent work that's happening in the local communities already that sets the foundation for what is in front of us. So I'll entertain definitions that we use to understand the term trails, as simple as that sounds. Mention the economics, as Michael already alluded to, as a critical underpinning for why we would engage in this conversation, and then run through a summary of what's happening at the local jurisdictions and some of our regional partners, and leave you with the opportunities that the day presents. Indeed, the term trail has many meanings, and depending on who you talk to or what your experience is, it can generate a picture such as the one here at the bottom as a wildlands trail through the back hills of Fort Ord, or the one on the top, which is the coastal trail along the Monterey Bay. And so in approaching this event, we went for a broad definition of trail to address designated routes for pedestrian or bicycle or equestrian uses, other non-vehicular uses, including paved, unpaved, urban, and rural routes, and the transit that connects them. So quite a broad definition, but it allows us to recognize the intimate linkages between these modalities and in general to talk about active transit as a concept. Economics, of course, is a main mission of us at Fora, the economic recovery, and it's been shown in numerous places around the country. I know some of our speakers will talk to this today, that active transit infrastructure really presents an opportunity for communities to benefit from health and wellness gains, from tourism, economic development, civic amenities, attracting people and businesses, and indeed new business opportunities such as beer gardens along the KD Trail in Dallas, Texas, one of the places in the world you would think is perhaps not the most bike-friendly, but has seen significant growth in the appeal of bike amenities and the new businesses that it's brought along. That's the top picture there. So the reuse plan provides a framework to approach the trail concept, and this is found in what's known as the Context and Framework Document, Section 3.6, and all of these documents can be found on the Fora website, fora.org, if you have any questions or anything like that, would like to follow up. But what we've highlighted here are 4 principles: that the trails would provide connections to non-motorized transportation alternatives to all neighborhoods on the former Fort Ord, that the trails would use recreation and open space assets to make the former Fort Ord attractive to potential users by interconnecting and increasing the access. So this points to the value and the original intent of the reuse plan of really strengthening these connections between the town and village centers that would grow here. Reserving adequate right-of-way along planned transportation corridors to allow for these active transit facilities to be developed and done efficiently, and that the trail system should be considered as an integral part of a larger regional trail network that shall be linked to regional bike pedestrian trails wherever possible. And as you'll see in the summary that I provide, we have a fantastic foundation with the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail work that's already been done here. I put this map up, and you can also find this in the program if you were able to pick up a program. The back of the program, this is the original diagram from the reuse plan. And if you look closely, you can see some checkered lines that refer to local hiker-biker trails and regional hiker-biker trails. So this diagram represents the graphic synthesis of the reuse plan foundation for trail development here. Indeed, it calls out 3 major trails: the Intergarrison Trail, the Fort Ord Dunes State Beach Trail, the Salinas Valley Seaside Trail, and then 3 minor, less critical, more local trail alignments: Monterey Road, Main Garrison, Crescent Avenue, and Reservation Road. So here I'm going to try a little something here that is somewhat experimental, or not experimental, but risky, which is to do some live Google Earthing around here just to help set a geographic context. Can you all see that okay? Is that viewable okay? Okay.
Chris Flacco, can you see it in the back?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the black boundary here is the boundary of the former Fort Ord there, and you can see we're set in the Monterey Bay region. We have, of course, the Fort Ord Dunes National Monument, which shows up down in this area. It takes up about 2/3 of the former fort area. We have, of course, the California State Park along the coast, and we have the boundaries of the city of Marina and Seaside, encompassing a large part of the center there. So then I'm going to do this, which would show us first the 3 major trail alignments. And so this one here, the orange, is the Intergarrison Road alignment as generally described. I think it's important to point out that the reuse plan, as is the case with most of California land use, starts at the most general and leads to a more specific. So the descriptions in the reuse plan provide the general framework for what should be here. It does not specifically define detailed alignments, and that's some of the opportunity that we all have to sort out here. From that, we have the trail that mostly exists along the Fort Ord Dunes State Beach. This is part of the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail, and it really provides a strong spine of existing facility to work with for developing those regional trail connections. And then, of course, the important connection of Salinas through the fort to Seaside and Delray Oaks. And indeed, this alignment here is from the 97 reuse plan, and as I will mention, getting further on in here, this alignment has been treated by our friends at TAMC, and their current project has proposed an alternate alignment that's preferable to the community. So with that general overview of the geography, I will step into the summary of the different programs already underway. Our friends at the City of Marina have a well-developed bicycle and pedestrian master plan that was approved by their city council in 2010. This is a general plan that was found consistent with the FORA reuse plan, which is part of the regulatory role that Fora plays. And of note, in 2014 of November last year, the council directed staff to work on incorporating an alignment of a trail known as FORTAG that is out in the lobby, and I'll reference it a little bit later, to try to work that trail into their formal planning documents going forward. The City of Seaside has an existing bikeways and bikeways map in their general plan, and this addresses circulation and recreation. It also was found consistent with the reuse plan in 2004. This map identifies bike routes throughout the city and links to CSUMB and the Coastal Trail. I think a note for the City of Seaside is they have a general plan update underway, and there's strong interest by the city through our conversations at Fora that's been indicated of really strengthening the connections, however possible, to and through the former Fort Ord. Our friends at the City of Monterey, although not developing particular trail plans for the small part of the base that is in their jurisdiction, they do have perhaps one of the most well-developed multimodal transportation plans in the Peninsula region. They've made significant strides on developing the facilities, and it continues to be an attractant for tourists in strengthening their tourism base and also an amenity for residents. So they have all of this stuff on the web that can be found for more details there. At the God's Country, is that what it's called, Jerry? City of Delray Oaks, the preliminary frog pond concept. They have some property there that is currently being, they're working with the Monterey County Regional Parks District to develop public access, and as their development plans for the former Fort Ord lands go forward, we know there is interest by the city and their developers to work with Fora and trail advocates to maintain and enhance trail access through those lands. Our friends at the Office of Monterey County Planning, Carl Holm couldn't be here today, but he sent many representatives, including Mike Bellinger from Bellinger Foster. They have the latest and greatest Fort Ord Recreational Habitat Area Master Plan concept. There's some more information out in the lobby for that one. And this is effort undertaken to develop master plan and strategic concept for how to manage the Fort Ord lands that are coming into their ownership imminently. And many of you know these lands to the south of Inner Garrison Road and east of CSUMB campus. So be sure to talk with Mike or other representatives from the county when you have the moment today. Of course, the Bureau of Land Management, we have the greatest national monument in the country, according to some here, and they operate 40 miles of administrative roads, 46 miles of recreational trail for multiple use and for segregated uses. Perhaps that was originally what maybe attracted a lot of your attention, was the enjoyment you get out of these trails and the opportunity we have to really enhance their experience and utilization going forward. I know Eric talks a lot about improving signage, trailhead quality, and maintenance needs. So they also have a table out here, and I'm sure would be happy to talk with any of you. State Park indeed also has a preliminary concept for trail routes that would improve access along the state park property, pretty much paralleling the highway. And these routes are subject to change, of course, and funding and permit dependent. But I think there may be even some movement on all that as we speak. So we can look forward to great things from the state park. They also brought some more detailed information that's out in the lobby. Here we are at the California State University. They have a master plan that has a bicycle and pedestrian focus. There's a preliminary trail concept under development, and I know the staff there are quite interested, and the administration is quite interested in continuing to improve the biking and walking nature of the campus so that we can accommodate the growing demand for students and connect the Fort Ord Dunes State Park and National Monument through the campus and to their East Campus housing areas. One thing they have done there, which I think is notable in this case, is develop this bike map. It's called TripWise, and you can find it on their website, which is provided mostly for their students, but was really an effort to connect across the jurisdictional boundaries the existing bike routes. So a product like this represents some of the type of material that would be useful and beneficial not only for students and residents, but also for tourists. So I think a great inspiration and a useful product. Now to our friends at the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. I referred to this, mentioned this earlier. This is the current, I believe most current, Ariana, alignment of the multimodal corridor, and this would provide bus rapid transit and bike facilities from Salinas to Marina. And this is the Blanco Road connection, which was originally represented in the reuse plan, and in response to community preferences, this alignment has been adjusted and is currently working its way through the various channels to formalization. But some exciting things here would allow for a focus of development and funding over time to really deliver a multimodal option for people to get from Salinas to the peninsula. Of course, the 2011 Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan for the county is also a product from TAMC. They worked with Alta Planning and Design to develop this master plan, which allows for strategic investments in regional connectivity and trails, so right in line with what we're talking about here today. And I did mention this, the Monterey Bay region has a tremendous amenity already in existence with the Sanctuary Scenic Trail that is envisioned to span from Santa Cruz south to Pacific Grove and Carmel. A large section of it's already completed here in Monterey County. And I know our friends from Santa Cruz are actively working to secure funding for the Rails with Trails development that would contribute significantly to the completion of this trail. And it has been mentioned that it's a state and a national asset, one that helps elevate the standing of the region quite broadly. Now here's the FORTAG concept, the Fort Ord Rec Trail and Greenway. This was been led by two CSUMB professors, Fred Watson and Scott Waltz, along with Gayle Martin from Marina. And this is a very well-developed grassroots effort to conceive a trail alignment that would reference the framework laid down by the reuse plan and respond to real detailed topographic variations that they've mapped out intimately across the landscape, and provide a variety of loop options connecting east from the Bay Trail and through the Fort Ord lands, and connecting the state park to the National Monument and the CSUMB campus. So I know they have a lot to say about that. They've got a display and information out in the lobby, so feel free to approach them if you'd like more information on that. Last but not least, Victoria Beach, along with some CSUMB staff and professors and a little help from myself, worked on a synthesis of Peninsula routes and trails into a planning database that would help establish a framework for connecting some of the area from Carmel and the Big Sur Land Trust lands there northward to the Fort Ord area, and eventually up all the way around the region. So this is another example of kind of regional and cross-jurisdictional planning that's already been undertaken and provides a foundation for us to move forward. I will close with this opportunity. Michael mentioned it earlier. It's not a few weeks away. It's actually 8 days or 10 days away, the Fort Ord Design Workshop, or charrette. And this is part of a larger effort by the Fort Ord Reuse Authority to complete additional parts of the plan and will be an opportunity to coalesce a lot of the ideas and energy stimulated here today into concepts for design and urban design guidelines for the region. So we encourage you all to come out to that. That's February 2nd is the kickoff date. There's some more speakers. Some of our speakers that are here today, you might hear some additional information from them as well. But indeed, understanding the value of the connected active transit system is one of our main opportunities today, hearing from folks like Tim Blumenthal, who will be able to tell us all about what's happening, trends around the country and around the world related to active transit from his experience with People for Bikes and other organizations. Global best practices, Peter Katz has a fine base of experience to draw on and bring those ideas to the table. Coordination between agencies, users, and advocates. I think all of our speakers will be able to talk to that. Indeed, Mia Burke from Alta Planning and Design has deep experience in this arena, and certainly under the foundation of this all being a goal of strengthening our economic vitality and recovery, Dina Belzer from Strategic Economics will be able to talk to the benefits of transit-oriented development and its capacity for strengthening economic activity in our region. So I look forward to hearing from all the speakers, and with that, I think I'll pass it back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I know many of you have heard Josh's presentation in pieces of that you heard before. It's an evolving presentation that continues to get more input from folks all around the Monterey Bay region about the trails and the importance of the connectivity. I want to reiterate his comment about the work that Scott Waltz in particular, and would you stand up, Fred? Fred didn't want to stand up earlier, but Fred has done a real leadership job in getting people to look at trails in this area. I noticed that the mayor of the city of Seaside has joined us, and he always is such an bashful guy. He doesn't want anybody to know, but and I point out folks and recognize them because of the importance of having elected officials, the leadership in this region, to hear the presentations today. I have both bad news and good news. The bad news is Jane Haynes informed me that we were going through the process of going to the overflow parking, which means more people drove than rode bikes. The good news is Jane also pointed out that means we're having a success because people showed up. So thanks, Jane, for pointing that out. A little logistics while we're talking about this. A couple of folks asked earlier, make sure the restrooms are just on the other side of that wall, so you have to go outside the door and get around. We still have coffee, water. Looks like Steve Ensley has not gotten to the back yet, so there's still one or two more muffins. I would now like to take one more logistics point here, and that is everybody mentioned the fact that we were going to have this design guidelines workshop in Charette in 10 days. I think it's February 2nd, which is 11 days, which is good. For those of you that are participating, it's not a full 2 weeks of activities, but please take the time to look at what's offered on the Fora website and pick the things that you think are going to be best for you to participate in. Earlier today, we mentioned the fact that we were going to have some extraordinary speakers here that you could talk about and talk with and exchange ideas and thoughts. Our first speaker today is going to talk a bit about his experiences and background. He's pretty well known for his work in the profession. Tim Blumenthal I met last night for the first time, and we talked quite a bit about his background and experiences. He's the president of People for Bikes, which is a national movement to make bike riding better for everyone, especially how it interrelates with other folks that are using cars, horses, or other kinds of things, and the interface between all of those. Tim has previously served more than 11 years as executive director of the International Mountain Biking Association. Under his leadership, the IMBA grew in its numbers, grew in its expertise, grew in its representation as a mountain bike advocacy group. He began his cycling work as a journalist, and I noticed that he writes extremely well based on the work that he's published. He later became the managing editor of the Mountain Bike magazine after he finished his work as editor of Velo News. He is now the racing editor of Bicycling magazine. I give you Tim Blumenthal.
What an opportunity you have here. What a remarkable opportunity. I've had the good fortune to visit for the Sea Otter Classic pretty much each of the last 18 or 19 years. And I have the good fortune of being able to visit a lot of places all over the world. And I tell Frank Johannan, who runs the Sea Otter Classic so beautifully, how much I look forward to coming here. And why is that? It's a lot of things. So I'm in the overflow parking lot. I came from Colorado yesterday. I couldn't bike, I'm sorry, but even walking from the overflow parking lot to here through the field of live oaks with the green underbrush, I mean, it's spectacular. I mean, it just, for somebody coming from a place that right now is very brown and very gray and very snowy, Colorado, it's so green, it's so lush. The combination of the Pacific Coast, your trees, your hills, and the people. Okay, I mean, and again, don't get scared, but I find this to be one of the most receptive and positive places in all of California, and that's wonderful for visitors. And it's also going to be wonderful as you ponder and develop your business climate, your appeal to new businesses, your appeal to retirees, your inclusiveness to the various communities all around the region. What a fantastic place. So what an opportunity. And I'm just really thrilled to be here. And I had to start with that. And I had to say that you should know that the Sea Otter Classic is revered throughout the country and in fact around the world as, if not the best, one of the very best multifaceted 7-ring circuses, celebrations of cycling for all people of all kinds, all shapes, mountain biking, road biking, little kids, people who are 137 years old like I am, all of that. But the Sea Otter Classic is a real testament with a global reputation, and you should all be very proud and grateful for the work that Frank has done, Frank Johannan, who is here. So really, Frank, thank you. So whether it's great mountain biking, whether it's great road riding on many of your roads, aside from the ones that are right down the hearts of certain valleys, are pretty lightly traveled. And that's pretty tough to find these days, a good road riding experience in the United States. It's really good here, okay, generally speaking. Riding along the coast, 17-mile drive, it's one of the rides that I absolutely look forward to every year. It's always different, it's always windy, it's always stormy, it's always character building, and it's always wonderful. Riding in the trees, just, your trees here, even from the overflow parking lot to here, are just spectacular. And I think this needs to be the focus of today, a lot of this is going to be about what you do as you develop to make everyday bike riding for short trips practical, safe, and convenient. And this is something that we work on every day all over the country and all over the world. So you explained what we did, what we do, but we're a national movement. And I think the key phrase here is uniting or connecting millions of people, thousands of businesses, and hundreds of communities to improve bicycling in the U.S. And bicycling, of course, is only part of this whole discussion. That's my acknowledgement. I'm focused on that. But I do believe, and I feel lucky every day to work on this, that when people ride bikes, great things happen. All kinds of great things, and not only for the people who ride, but for the communities where the bike riding takes place. So our goal is to make bike riding safe and appealing for everyone who wants to ride, and we think that we can play a modest but important part of making the world better. We always think about 5X. That's a core slogan. I'm not going to talk much about people for bikes, but 5X, we have a dream, and it's actually starting to happen, that certain key measurements of bicycling will grow. One is that the number of bike rides that Americans make will increase. Right now it's between roughly 4 and 5 billion bike trips in an average year. And we would like to see by 2025 that go up to, say, 20 billion. And I'm pretty sure, even with my bias, that if the number of bike trips that Americans make goes from 4 to 20, lots of good things are going to happen for the economy, for health, for quality of life, for people just basically feeling better and being more productive. So investment, the federal government has come a long way. Despite what you may have heard, it used to be maybe 15 or 17 years ago that the federal government nationwide invested a total of $20 million in bike paths and bike lanes and dirt trails. This last fiscal year that ended on September 30th, the total was $820 million. So from 20 to 200 to 400 to 800. $800 million pays for about 3,000 projects a year nationwide in all 50 states. And it's every kind of project. It's the kind of projects that Josh was talking about. Some of it's multi-use paths, some of it's dirt trails, some of it's protected bike lanes, some of it's just white stripes on roads. So safe routes to school for kids. The federal government invests a lot, and states and counties and communities are doing an increasingly good job of matching that. So we would like to see that increase. We're going to talk a little bit about protected bike lanes, which is one of the most important trends in bicycling nationwide. It's the simple fact that most of you, most of us, most of our kids, most of our parents, most families are not going to ride or ride often if their only option is mixed in with fast-moving cars and trucks, cars that are going 25, 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. That's not going to be a place where most moms, parents, my parents, young kids are going to ride. So one thing we've been pushing is the creation of separated protected bike lanes, physically separated from motor vehicle traffic by bollards or planters or physical or curbs, physical barriers. And the number of protected bike lanes in the United States, and we've helped develop them through our Green Lane project, has quadrupled, 400% increase in the last 3 years. And I do think that there is going to be, I hope, a protected bike lane component to the development of bicycling in this region. Because there are some places where you're really going to need that. Not too many, but some places. Number of mountain bike parks, the number of people for bike supporters. You know, we want to get people who like bicycling and see the power of it to stand up and be counted. And we passed 1 million supporters late last year. So even in a country with 325 million people, 1 million is a number that matters. You know, it's sort of your Austin Powers thing. You know, where Dr. Evil says 1 million, and he thinks it's a big number. Well, 1 million is still a big number, you know, where I come from. And when we go to meet with Congress or governors or mayors, and we say we have 1 million people in our database, including about 85,000 in California, that's still it's a real number. So the 4 things that are going to get us to 5X are grassroots, getting the grassroots army, the million people, the grass tops, business leaders, elected officials, but really infrastructure. And you have some great experts. You know, when Mia Burke talks in the keynote today, what an expert she is on infrastructure. And I don't love the word infrastructure. I need somebody to quickly create a word that we can replace it. It only has one syllable and sounds friendly. But infrastructure is super important, and what you're building here, I think it pretty much, a lot of it is infrastructure, isn't it? And then last for us is the way we tell the story. So I'm going to move very, very quickly, and I'm going to make sure that Josh cuts me off at 25 minutes so I can answer some questions. But 1 million people matters in a country of 320. You get that. The voice of business matters. One of the key components to this project, and in fact the future of bicycling in the United States, is what does it mean for business of all kinds, from residential to commercial to, I think here, the attraction of new employers who bring great jobs and great benefits and strengthen the community and commit to the community. The voice of business matters, and we have some great, great business partners, some unlikely ones. This morning I was on the phone with Samsung, which is actually by business the largest business in the world, Korean-based, but they actually sell more stuff in a year than Apple, which is hard to believe, but they do. And they are very much interested in bicycling and promoting bicycling worldwide. That's the kind of ally, I think, that can help us reach a lot of people with the right message. Better infrastructure really matters, and we'll get into that. So I'm going to very, very quickly hit the biggest bike trends, okay? And you can slow me down, but one thing that's happening is bike riding in cities is really growing, and it's a combination of better infrastructure and bike sharing. Is everybody familiar? Do you know what bike sharing is? I'll explain it in a sentence. Basically, it's bikes that are available usually at convenience stations that are spaced every quarter mile or less, where you can literally put a membership card in or a credit card and get a bike and use it to get from point A to point B, a trip of no more than 30 minutes, and you can buy an annual pass, you can buy a one-time use pass, and bike sharing now is quite big. There are about 80 or 85 installations in the United States, and Mia has been very involved, and I'm sure she'll talk about that, but in New York, and Chicago, and now Seattle, and San Francisco. Yeah, Washington, D.C. was one of the first. Denver was one of the first. We helped start a lot of these. Minneapolis, cold and dark right about now, but bike use there, even in the middle of January, is pretty significant. So bike sharing and better places to ride is one of the big trends. Another trend is just an awareness that what happens when people ride bikes is it's not just about the bike riders, you know? I think we used to have a problem in Washington where there was a perception that the federal investment in bicycling was only about making people who ride bikes have a better bike riding experience. But I think we all know, and I think you know that here, that there are business benefits, there are road congestion benefits in places where enough people are riding. There certainly are pollution benefits, and without question, quality of life. You put all those things together, it's a pretty good package. Bicycling is becoming more mainstream. I don't know if you can tell, that's Leonardo DiCaprio on a city bike, and he's not the only one. I would say that there was what we talk about when we talk about this. We talk about the change from. Does anybody know the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin? Do you remember Stephen Carell? And do you remember? I think he works at a Best Buy, and basically he rides a bike to work, and he crashes into a truck, and it's sort of this deeply embarrassing. He's basically portrayed as what he usually is portrayed as is a geek. And I think that bicycling in America is changing from something that people who wear funny clothes, fringe type activity, to more of a mainstream. And I don't want to make too much of it. I don't want to discount it, but I want to say that I saw a new commercial the other night, and it was an IBM commercial, Twitter commercial. And the whole theme of it was about communicating the joy of bike rides. And when you get IBM and, new, but Twitter combining, and it's part of the process of bicycling becoming more mainstream. So it's a good thing. Millennials. This is going to be, I think, part of your discussion here, an important part of the discussion. Clearly, the rate of car ownership, the interest in acquiring things, the desire for a compact lifestyle, bike riding seems to be more popular among millennials, and car ownership. And I've talked with a lot of people in Detroit and in Germany. This is a global trend, and I think it's a positive trend. And it also opens a lot of doors to you as you think about the future of this community. You have some work to do, I think, to compete with the Bay Area and even Silicon Valley to attract millennials. On outdoor recreation, you're killing it, you're great. For things to do, you're getting better all the time, but arts, culture, all those things, and just options, you have some work to do. And I think you all know that. The economic story of bicycling is getting better all the time. I don't have time to really get into that, but if you go to our website, you'll see that we have tons of stories about measurable economic gains that follow better bike infrastructure, that follow more bicycling. And we're not just talking about bike businesses, we're talking about commercials, stores of all kinds, we're talking about tourism-related businesses, and it really is a great story. Big businesses, powerful businesses want bike-friendly locations. I looked at that. I asked somebody on my staff, can you get me a picture of the new Amazon headquarters in downtown Seattle? And I think that's it. I look at it and it reminds me of, I don't know, the biosphere in Arizona or something. But I think this actually does anybody know? Can somebody say yes? I think this is the artist rendering for Amazon's new headquarters in downtown Seattle. And part of the deal that Amazon made with Seattle is they said, we want a protected bike lane that goes right in front of our headquarters, and we want you to pay for it because we're going to bring all these jobs. And Seattle said yes. And so it's just big businesses are looking for bike-friendly locations where their workers can enjoy a high quality of life, compact lifestyle, where they can recreate, shop, work, live, everything. And your 28,000 acres here, I can see it. I'm not your perfect demographic, but as you develop this and do this right, I'm just one small component. And this will be, what a place to live if you can integrate all those elements. So very, very quickly, one of the big challenges is getting kids on bikes. And part of that is that parents no longer seem willing to let their kids just go. A lot of places, I would say it's just not anywhere close to being safe enough to let elementary or middle school kids ride without escort. But there are a lot of places that are pretty much as good as they were, but it's just not happening. And we can talk about that later. Tension on the road. This is a big deal. Sort of a weird photo on the left. Sorry about that. But clearly, distracted driving and the simple fact that the population of the United States is growing by 1 million to 1.5 million people each year. I think one of the things that we need to talk about today is what $1.99 a gallon gas means. A lot of people will save money, people who have no choice but to drive longer distances to get to work or get to shopping, and that's a good thing. What it means to vehicle miles traveled, what it means to the bicycling experience, these are all very interesting questions, and I think Mia probably knows a lot more about that than I do, and we'll come back to it. Limited dollars for bike infrastructure. There's so many agencies involved here and so many municipalities and counties, but the simple fact is that right now, our nation on the federal level, we're about number 22 or number 23 globally in what we're investing in infrastructure. So we need to move people and we need to move goods, but we don't have the political will to come up with the money to invest in all types of infrastructure. We're talking about roads, we're talking about transit, we're talking about bikes, we're talking about people on foot, we're talking about connecting all those things. So it actually is remarkable to go to DC and to see how paralyzed, I don't want to be too negative because I'm optimistic by nature, but to see how paralyzed everybody is when the simple fact is that, in my mind, you could raise the gas tax right now by 20 cents, 25 cents, take a big step towards correcting that shortfall, and most people would say, oh, gas prices just went back up a little bit. Nowhere near where they've been, but up a little bit. So stay tuned on that one. Talked about low gas prices. Leveraging the power of bike racing. Well, so bike racing is a big international sport, and one of the biggest bike races of the year is here. And in the relatively small world of bike racing, bike racers are influencers. And when we get people for bikes on the side and they talk about the importance of bicycling, not as a competition, but in everyday living, that's really a great thing. Blending the many tribes of bicycling, and that's one thing that's really clear that you're doing here. You know, there are so many different elements to bicycling. Don't think that it's just tourism, or just road riding, or just mountain biking, or just everyday riding. Don't think that bike riding for transportation is mostly commuting, because it's not. It's somewhere between 13 and 16 or 17% of bike riding. Most Americans live too far away from where they work to ride a bike. You know, the average American commute, I believe, is 16 miles each way, 24 minutes. It's just not going to work. But half the trips that Americans make are 4 miles or shorter. And there's a lot of opportunity for that, particularly in a place like here. So I'm just about wrapping up here, but I want you to realize that I think there may be a perception that bicycling is pretty much or predominantly a higher income professional activity. And it's simply not the case. The breadth of bicycling in the entire United States, the diversity of bicycling, not the images, not the way the industry sells bikes, but the actual use of bicycling is really, really diverse and broad. And I think that's one of your key challenges here is how do you make this development work for everybody in the region, not just visitors who love to come here like me, not just professional retirees who maybe were drawn for obvious reasons to live here, to move here, but it's got to work for everybody, and I think it can. So very quickly, I want to give you a couple examples of places that have done really well with bike tourism. One is Whistler. It's a giant ski area in British Columbia, and they have one thing that you don't have, which is about 1,000, 13,000-foot mountains, you know, and skiing year-round. But what they did is they created a bike environment that works for everyone. Some of it's and it's what you have here. Some of it is mountain biking, what we call gravity bike riding, where you take a lift up and you ride down. Some of it is really technical and really challenging. But then, right along the river valley at the bottom, they've done a fantastic job of creating family trails, low stress, interconnected, well-mapped, well-signed, and they've done a beautiful job. And they're doing a great job economically. Here's a good one, Cuyuna, Minnesota. I don't know how many, former coal mining place that pretty much, when the coal mining stopped, it went dead. And what they did is the state came in and converted the coal mine area into bike riding trails, mountain bike trails. And they built about 25 miles of trails, and it's now become a draw for the entire Midwest. And they're talking about $20 million of economic benefit in a tiny town that was essentially dead. Pretty interesting. Fruita, Colorado. If you live where I do on the Front Range in Colorado, a lot of people go mountain biking in a place called Moab, which is in Utah. But to get there, you have to drive through western Colorado and sort of deserty. And this one town, Fruita, developed trails, and they did a fantastic job. How am I doing? What does that mean? Done? Okay, good. Close. Okay. All right, good. Fruita has done an absolutely fantastic job. Abundant trail network, great publicity, and it's the same kind of thing that you can do here. Medora, North Dakota, another great example. Where I live in Boulder, and this is my last point, we've created something called the Boulder Mountain Bike Park, and we took about 30 acres of land, and we created a mountain bike park that serves kids who are 3 all the way up to people who are professional bike riders. Costs $4 million. It attracts 500 to 800 people every day, almost year-round. And you could build one of those for less money right here, and it would be a fantastic thing for the community, fantastic thing for tourism. So that's pretty much it. I'll just leave you with one simple idea, that between the Pacific Coast and your light and your planning and your cycling history and your commitment, I think you have a lot of smart people here and a great plan, and I'm just so excited to see what you do, and we're ready to help any way we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. That was both inspiring and informative. We're going to ask you to be willing to answer some questions from some of the folks here in the crowd, and Josh Metz is going to take a microphone and go toward the back of the room. While he's doing that, I just want to ask, I saw a very strong advocate for trails, outdoor activity, running 5Ks, walk in the room. And I want to acknowledge that person because he's also the commanding officer at the Presidio of Monterey, and to have a strong advocate for trails and be in that particular position is important to all of us. Colonel Paul Fellinger, please. Thanks for being here, Paul. Anyone else would like to start with questions?
I have one here, Michael.
Gordon Smith, I know you always have a question.
Michael, we got one here. Oh.
No, okay. We got one in the back. Okay, perfect.
Yes, with the recent spate of motorbikes tying up traffic and causing havoc in 5 major cities in the past couple of weeks, do you see any backlash within the political structure to developing all the things that we're going to need to expand cycling?
I don't. Should I? I hope not. Okay.
Come up with a good one, Bernard.
Daryl Shote, Seaside. My one is, as far as bicycles and motor vehicles, legislation-wise. Everybody's regulating motor vehicles, but bicycles are now becoming where we need legislation, like stay in the bike lane or not 20 cars wide and all that. Is there something going on in the other states that are happening?
I don't think there is any comprehensive legislation that I know of in the United States to sort of require bike licensing. There's no question that bike riders share the responsibility to use the road carefully and responsibly, and there's no question that a lot of riders don't do a good job of that. So I would say it starts with education. We talk all the time, and not always successfully, with riding predictably, stopping at stop signs, certainly stopping at traffic lights when other people are around, being visible, which is a huge issue this time of year. One of the most interesting pieces of legislation would be the 3-foot passing laws. And what I would say is, in some ways, they're very helpful because they remind people to interact with bike riders carefully. I would be naive if I didn't admit that there is a lot of resentment out there. Resentment, I think, I call it the Dire Straits, money for nothing, chicks for free. If you remember that song, and that there's a video that goes with it, and it's basically about refrigerator delivery men who are angry that rock and roll stars don't do anything and get paid and live great lives. And I still think that one of the perceptions of bicycling on the road is that somebody riding a bike wearing Lycra is lucky, privileged. Why aren't they working? What are they doing out here on my road? And we have a lot of work to do. So I don't think the key is going to be legislation. I think the key is going to be communication and attitude adjustment. Because I don't see the police being able to fully and properly enforce anything that happens on the road. It's really a daunting job.
Yeah, there's an elephant in the room that you may not be aware of and that people haven't spoken of yet. And it's of this something like 45 square miles. Close to a square mile now is supposed to be developed. It will take down over 40,000 of those lovely coast live oak trees you talked about. There are only two very short paved roads through there. There are miles of paved trails that Gordon Smith has mapped through there. They'll all be lost to development, including a horse racing track, probably just acres and acres of parking. It'll require that a lot of those gorgeous gently rolling hills that you talk about will have to be flattened for the horse. So my question is, are you aware of this, and why are we not acknowledging the fact that we have this elephant in the room?
I'm simply not qualified to speak about that. This is the first time I've heard of it, and I was the chairman of a planning commission in a town in Vermont many years ago, and there were constant discussions like this about any type of new development and what it meant to either the cultural heritage or the natural heritage. I hope it comes out. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, hi. My name is Stan Sokolow. I'm from Santa Cruz, but hoping to move here. There are three things that I'd like you to hear your comments about that I don't hear talked about very much. One is the problem of budgeting for trail maintenance. When I ride on the right of the road on Highway 1 in Santa Cruz and going north, there's a lot of broken glass. I don't know how often that stuff is removed. It seems like it's been there for years. And some of the trails have overgrowth of vegetation or low-hanging branches that don't give you headroom. Somebody's got to not just build the trails, but actually see to it that they're regularly maintained, not just try to respond to complaints. Second thing is integrating bikes into the transportation system requires dealing with the bikes when they get to the destination. We need better secured parking so that bike riders don't have to worry about their bike being stolen, and more dense parking in some places. I know in Davis they took on-street parking spaces away in front of some popular cafes, and they put in bike racks so people are encouraged to bike to those destinations. I'd like to see more of that planned into the whole system. What do you do with the bike when it gets there, And the third thing is a bike registry. We have a great way of tracking stolen cars, but stolen bikes, it's just a hodgepodge of nothing. There supposedly are some registries that law enforcement can consult to find a bike that's been reported as stolen. Nobody knows how to report it. There's some private organizations. I got mine registered with a bikeregistry.com or something, but who consults that? And we need to give serious thought to integrating bike registry into the system.
All right, so I'll take those very quickly in reverse order. Bike registry, great thing. Don't want bike riders to have license plates that are essentially used first so that motorists can report poor behavior. That doesn't sound good. The second one, bike parking, I feel like we're making a lot of progress all over the country. The removal of one parking space in front of a restaurant or a store is something that's happening all over the country because you can put 15 to 20 bikes in that space. There are a lot of new bike parking solutions that I've seen, amazing, and I agree with that. And your first point, remind me? Oh, maintenance. Maintenance is part of the infrastructure problem. It's sort of, if we're not investing enough at any level, there's also, I think, a desire on the part of planners and engineers and departments of transportation to build new stuff first rather than to take better care of what you have. And I understand that. But yeah, maintenance is a huge issue everywhere, particularly places that have freeze-thaw cycles and stuff expands and it splits, and the other places where stuff grows really, really fast. So yes, maintenance is a big issue. Yes.
Working? Yes. My name is McGregor Eddy. I write a column for the Californian called We Could Car Less, about alternatives. And I wanted you to address the question of public transit in this. And I wanted to also point out, although I won't give a long speech, that it's been missing from this conference. When the guy from 4 referenced Tripwise. Tripwise is actually mostly about how to get around by bus. It's not just a bike trail program. The bus is an integral part of it. When you mentioned Moab, I've been to Moab and I took the train. It's beautiful. The California Zephyr goes over the Donna Pass. You don't have to drive to Moab. When you said it's too far to commute, people can put their bike on a bus or a light rail, go partly to work and then bicycle. And I want to say that in this conference, public transit has been missing, including in instructions on how to get to this conference, which didn't mention that this campus is well served by bus, all of you people who drove. So I would like you to include public transit.
Sure. And so some of our strongest partnerships are with public transit, and we're always talking about first mile and last mile. The first mile from where you live to transit, the last mile from where transit ends to work or wherever you're going. And really encouraged by sort of the cooperation and communication with transit agencies, really discouraged by the amount of money that is being invested by governments in transit. You know, it's a big ticket item, and we could switch this conference and talk only about that. But I want you to know that we're right with transit. One thing I would say is you have daunting topography here. You know, it'd be great to have some rail, and and it would be great if there was a fast train, maybe, to the Bay Area. I know you can get it in Salinas, right? Good discussion.
Okay, we had one, Ariana.
Last question.
Ariana from TAMC wanted to respond to the prior questions you had.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ariana Green with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and I just wanted to respond to your questions about bike racks and maintenance of bicycle facilities in Monterey County. And our agency actually has a program. If you see a hazard on the roadway while you're bicycling, you can fill out a bicycle service request form, and we'll contact the agency who will come out with maintenance crews and take care of the problem. So please know that that resource exists in this community. And also I wanted to announce that we will be very soon be giving away bike racks, $30,000 worth of bike racks in Monterey County. So keep your eyes out for our applications, which will be made public within the next couple months.
Thank you, Ariana. Debbie, did you tell her to say that? She did it all by herself, correct? Thank you, Ariana. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break. I want everyone in the room, if you still have questions for Tim has indicated he's going to be with us all day today. He not only loves the area when he gets to recreate, he loves the area when he gets to listen to us. So if you do have questions and you want to talk to him personally, he might be willing to address those questions. So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and I'm serious about 10 minutes so that we will hear from Dina Belzer in 10 minutes.